Welcome to My Honest Truth, episode 53. In My Honest Truth, Brooks Agnew is one of the greatest American writers of our times. He's a scientist, an engineer, a public speaker who has spoken at conferences, and he has been on film, television, and radio. On radio, he hosts X Squared Radio on Revolution Radio on Wednesdays and on Truth Frequency Radio on Sundays. He also co-hosts Truth Frequency News on Truth Frequency Radio on Mondays and Wednesdays. But what I want to mostly focus on today is his writing. Several of his books have become Amazon bestsellers. I've read his book, Remembering the Future, and I think the writing in that book is sublime. Brooks, how are you today?
I am doing great. How are you, Alan?
Oh, I'm good. So that moment when you first realized that one of your books on Amazon had reached bestseller status, how did it feel?
Oh, I have to tell you, my co-author and I had finished this book. We worked on it for 4 years, and we got it done. We published it in, I think, November or December of 2004.
Which book was that?
This was volume 1 of The Arc of Millions of Years. It was a quad, actually, 4 books. We didn't know it at the time, but we wrote the first book, and we worked on it so hard, and it was all the bibliography and the editing and everything, and we thought, well, you buy 5 copies and I'll buy 5 copies, and we'll call ourselves authors. We did it. We wrote a book. Well, about 12 weeks later, it was number 38 on Barnes and Noble.
Way to go.
And we were blown away, absolutely blown away that people were interested in that kind of research.
So who was the co-author on that?
It was E.J. Clark. Now, she is an armchair archaeologist. So kind of traveled the world for 30 years, took her own photographs, explored her own caves. And she specialized in at the time, Mesoamerican stuff. And she had heard me speak some lecture. I forget what it was on. It was on physics, whatever it was. Anyway, she came up to me and asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book with her. And I said, well, maybe. I mean, what's it about? She said, well, it's on the creation of the earth. And I went, well, I mean, that's mildly interesting to a physicist. And she said, well, I want to show you a picture. So she showed me this picture. She said, what do you think that is? I said, I don't know. It kind of looks like a particle accelerator. She said, that's what I thought too. It's from a Babylonian scroll 5,000 years old.
Wow.
Well, that got my interest, and we started writing together, and we wrote 2,000 pages and published it. And then I went out on my own.
So how far on the bestseller list, how high did that one get?
I think it made like in the top 30 or so on Barnes and Noble. At the time, Amazon wasn't really coming on strong. Barnes and Noble was the big bookseller at the time. Amazon was just kind of struggling as a bookseller. And as time went on, Amazon just took over the market. Just Barnes and Noble hardly sells any books now.
Okay. As you can see, I got 2 of your books right there.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Charm a Favorite too. That's a great book.
So on your website, you have a section of free poetry that you wrote. I think it's quite good. Have you ever considered taking it off the site and publishing it as a little anthology of poems on something like the Amazon Kindle bookstore?
Yeah, I might. I mean, they're mostly just, poems about love or the creation of the world or stuff I've been writing over the years. And I just thought people would enjoy it. So I just give it to them to just try to get to know me a little bit better.
Well, I enjoy it. And I think that you might make some money if you sell it. What's the hardest part about writing for you?
Well, that's a good question. I started writing when I was 13. I had my first published article when I was 14, and I have published over 10,000 articles and documents over the years. And writing my first book was like writing an article, except you're writing on the same subject every single day. Now, when you're a writer as opposed to an author might take 10 years to write a book. They write when they're inspired. But a writer sits down every single day and writes. Sometimes it's 100 words, sometimes it's 20 pages, but you sit down every day and write. And that's a professional. So the hardest part about writing is making sure that you don't fill your life up with so much activity that you don't write. Once you stop writing, that section of your brain that slows down enough to put thoughts into written words begins to go to sleep. And I think that's a terrible thing. So I've been writing for about 53 years.
Wow, that's awesome. The person I interviewed last week, she said that the hardest part of writing is finding time.
Yeah, you have to set aside time, and sometimes nothing comes. Sometimes it blocks, or sometimes you go back and do editing. Like I write a lot of dialogue in my books, and so sometimes I'll go back and read the conversations, and I'll say maybe something's missing in the description, so I'll flesh out the conversation a little bit more, or fix some of the adjectives or formatting. But you sit down every single day. Usually it's 1 to 2 hours for me. And if I'm between contracts, it could be as much as 5 hours a day.
So your birth books, Bearth, I've heard you say several times that you want to make that into a television series. Do you want to write all the scripts yourself?
Well, no, I necessarily. I mean, a writer who has, had a lot of bestsellers and has built his own audience kind of wants to write his own scripts. But, I've competed in script writing contests before in 3 different states, and the scripts do really well and the actors really like reading them. But does that mean I'm the best screenwriter? No. But there's 42 scripts, 14 scripts per season, and there's 3 seasons. So there's enough there for 3 years of television. And it is action packed. It is as good as or better than any TV that I've ever seen.
Well, I hope it gets made, because that's one way to hear the story.
Yeah.
How do
Birth Volume 1 was originally written as a script in 2011, and I didn't know anything about getting a script funded or making movies or anything. So it sat there almost for 4 years and did nothing. And then some events started happening in 2005 that were in the book. We're in the script. So I pulled the script out and said, okay, we've got to turn this into a book and get it published. So I did. And I thought it would be another year before I'd sit down and write another book, because that's about my pace, 1 a year.
So am I correct? Am I correct in knowing like Charm of Favor is a prequel to the Birth books?
Yeah, Charm of Favor is the prequel to the Birth trilogy. And now I'm writing the sequel to Charm of Favor.
Interesting. So will that sequel, does it take place at the same time as the first book in the Birth trilogy?
No, it's going in a different direction. It's more temporal. Birth is a story about how Earth kind of comes apart as a science fiction version of the Rapture. So it's definitely a big screen movie. Charm of Favor is a true crime book. Everything in Charm of Favor actually happened. It actually happened. All that technology, everything that's in Charm of Favor is real. That's why the names are real. And the same thing's happening with the sequel.
So you see that blank wall behind me? I use a projector and I watch a lot of movies and TV on it. And,
nice.
And I would love to someday on that wall watch your Birth films.
It would be great.
Great. How do you develop your ideas?
Wow. Well, first I get a concept, and then what I'll do is I'll make a center circle in my page, and then I will begin to draw what's called a Gantt chart. Not like a spreadsheet, a Gantt chart like a balloon diagram. And I'll start connecting balloons to it, which are characters. And then all the lines are actually locations or actions between those things. And as it blossoms out, I see the whole relationship. Like if I have 16 characters in the book, and some of them are main characters, some of them are minor characters, I can see the interactions of all them. So if you'll notice when you read Charm of Favor, the chapters are about 20 minutes to an hour long if you read them, but they're like little snippets of stories because you have 4 main groups that are working in the book, and they're all working at the same time, and you want to tell the story of all 4 groups. So you're like flying a drone from one group to the other group to the other group to tell the audience what's going on in those 4 groups. And then slowly through the book, they come together into that center circle.
Nice. So give my little audience of probably about 20 people a little piece of advice about anything.
Well, I would say that the best advice is to finish what you start. If you sit down to write a book, and I know lots of people that say, I've always wanted to write a book. And over the years, of course, I've gotten kind of crass about it now, but I always tell them, well, actually, no, you haven't. And they go, no, really, I have. I've always wanted to write a book. And I say, well, when's the last time you actually sat down and wrote like you're going to write a book? You never did. You always made excuses for not doing it. Stop making excuses. The time for planting seeds is over. It's now time to harvest.
Yay.
Get it done.
That's good. Here's a question that's not about writing or publishing. So I've been a listener to your radio program, X Squared Radio, for a while. And a while ago, I've heard you say good reasons why the Clinton crime cartel should get punished. Your show is often on top of TalkStream Live. With so many listeners knowing the crimes of the Clintons, why are the Clintons still free?
That's a very good question. And that's why I wrote Charm of Favor. It's subtitled The Rise of the Clinton Crime Syndicate. And it's just a type and a shadow because it isn't new with the Clintons. It's been around since the days of Jesus Christ. The same people that crucified Christ, the same people that caused the Civil War, that crashed the stock market in 1929, that smashed the towers in 2001. It's the same group. So
I've done some writing and researching, and I have to say that I believe you are correct in what you're saying.
You know, there's the Black Eye Club out there. You heard of that, right? You see all these pictures of like 68 famous people that have had a black eye. But there are 3 people that aren't on that list. One is Barack Obama. One is Hillary Clinton, and the other is Bill Clinton. Those 3 have not had black eyes. Every president, with the exception of course, Donald Trump, has had a black eye. Senators, congressmen, judges. It's amazing, these people that have been punched in the face. You know why? Is because Hillary Clinton is right at the pinnacle of this pyramid. When you see this week that the Supreme Court of the United States stepped in and said Hillary Clinton did not have to sit down for a deposition, that's power. When you see what happened in February of 2020, one phone call shut down 187 countries around the world, right at the most powerful growing economy in the history of the world. That's power. Power is nothing to be messed with.
We've got to put more cogs in the system, more gears, more checks and balances.
Well, I've often said that war is just justice denied. If justice is not served, it ends up in war.
So back to writing. So the next question that I had planned here is, in writing, do you like to collaborate? But you already talked about a collaboration. Do you still like to collaborate?
I don't collaborate with other writers other than the first 4 books that we wrote. I don't read other people's stuff. I don't, the research that I do is into the subject matter itself. I don't read what other people have written. I try not to be influenced by other writers. I don't plagiarize at all. So it all comes from the soul, and it is
That's probably why I said book, Remembering the Future, it's sublime. The writing is sublime.
I appreciate that.
That's what I thought.
It's not a big book, but everybody tells me about. I wrote that book in 2007. Everybody tells me that they have to read it more than once because there's so much depth in the book.
That's right. I do intend to read it again. So the next question I had planned here is describe your favorite tropes. Is that a good question or a bad question?
I don't really have a favorite. It's like asking me what's my favorite star, what's my favorite song. It depends on where my mood is, what I'm wanting to do with my mood, where I want to explore, if I want to meditate or if I want to ride my motorcycle, which by the way can be one and the same sometimes. So I don't really have a favorite. I like them all.
So have you okay. So you already mentioned that you read into the subject matter rather than reading. I do have a question here. What writers make you love reading?
Well, I like true crime stuff like Tom Clancy or Patterson, or I like science fiction writers like McGaffrey and Frank Herbert, and of course Lord of the Rings, and Philip Jose Farmer, which did the Riverboat series. Larry Niven and Jerry Purnell that did the Ringworld series. These great grand concepts. I really like reading them. I like to see the depth that they go and the width that they explore their subject. And I really like to see the detail. When I can really see the colors and smell the smells and hear the sounds in writing, I think the writer's done a very good job.
Have you ever read Isaac Asimov's Foundation books?
Yeah, I read the Foundation series when I was in high school and early college.
Did you like it?
I did. I liked the subject matter, but Isaac, being a physicist, he had a tendency to put a lot of hard science in his books, which sort of lent the credulity to the storyline, but it also overwhelmed the reader a lot of times.
But did it overwhelm you?
No, I wasn't overwhelmed, but I was fascinated. I like Robert A. Heinlein too. Wrote along the same line. And of course, Ray Bradbury, who was a short story writer for a long time and then had a series of best-selling books.
So when did you first realize you wanted to be a writer? Was it around 13, 14?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've always been good with words since, the fourth or fifth grade. And when, you go to English class or English composition class and you write something and the teacher gives you an A, and then the teacher pulls you aside and says, by the way, this is really good. You should consider writing. So that came early, like 11 or 12 years old. And I started writing when I was 13, and I published an article, by the way, it was called Black Cars Are Faster. I wrote it when I was 14. It was published in, I think it was Car and Driver magazine. I got paid 4 cents a word for it, and I had to lie about my age.
Wow. So another question kind of about a world issue. On your Sunday night radio broadcast, you used to regularly do a Religion of Peace report at the start of the show. You've recently dropped that. In my opinion, that was a very important information to report on. Why did you drop that?
I listened to feedback from the listeners, and I made that report for years. I have a source that I go to and look that up. And I thought it was important to tell everybody at the beginning of the program each Sunday what the Religion of Peace was doing, how many people they had killed in the last 7 days. And sometimes,
Well, the mainstream doesn't really report that, so that's why I felt that it was very important to be on your show.
it's true. But January of 2021, I felt like we'd had so much negative in 2020 that
Okay.
I just wanted to make the program more positive and more about love and start to look forward instead of looking backward.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. How long did it take you to write the Birth trilogy?
Well, once I turned Birth Volume 1 from the script to the book, believe it or not, I usually write a book about every 18 to 24 months. I wrote 4 books in 18 months.
Wow.
Oh, it wasn't just wow. It was like the books woke me up at 6:30 in the morning, and I would write 2 or 3 chapters a day. It streamed out of me. It was like I was walking around in the story, and I wrote so much. I use these solar powered keyboards like this. I wrote so much. I went through 2 keyboards. I wore the letters off the keyboards,
Wow.
and my hands ached. Each book is about, the first book is only about 70,000 words, but then they go to 90,000, 100,000 words. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of editing. It's a lot of change. And my hands were sore for a long time, just from writing, constantly writing. I couldn't stop. It was like I would write pretty much all day, and my roommate would say, "Are you done yet? How far along are you?" I said, "Well, I got 75,000 words, and there's just more coming." And it would just keep going and going, and it was awesome.
That's awesome. I love your enthusiasm for writing and for everything you do. And this has been 22 minutes. So I'd like you to please tell everyone where they can find your stuff, and then I'll end the recording.
Sure. Well, there are a couple ways that if you want to find any of the books, just go to Amazon and put my name in, Brooks Agnew. Or if you want deals like the audio books or hats or anything that goes along with the books, go to my website, which is simply brooksagnew.com, just brooksagnew.com, and go to the store there. And I have holiday specials. I have some people buy the books on Amazon and they don't get a signature. So I actually sell signature cards. So this gray area right here, you can put a signature. I put a signature and you just stick it in the book, and then you've got a signed copy. So I really, really go a long way to accommodate the readers. And if you buy the Kindle version or the paperback version, I will give you the whole audiobook for free. So if you're not a good reader, don't worry about it. I read it for you.
And you have such a great voice to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So thank you for being on my little show here. And the last episode got more viewers than I thought it would. And I bet this one will get more viewers than I thought it would too.
I very much appreciate that, Alan. Thank you.
So thank you, and see you later.